Siso Outdoors YouTube channel. Hopefully you will enjoy this video. Many areas have seen a lot of snow this winter. Also many people, grown-ups as well as kids, have spent more time at home due to the COVID pandemic. Looking for some fun outside activities, one thing that seems to have increased in popularity is building igloos and other types of snow structures. Kids like to build them so they can play in them, and adults have also been helping out building them for the kids and even for themselves, just out of boredom, looking for a good workout for themselves. But igloos and other snow shelters are not just limited to the casual backyard adventurers, but many winter campers also use snow shelters on their overnight hikes. Even though the backyard and the backcountry snow shelters aren't quite comparable and are built using different criteria, they still have some common safety concerns that one needs to be aware of. The main safety concerns are structural integrity of the shelter, risk of suffocation, and the risk of hypothermia. Just recently, a 7-year-old boy died when the igloo where he and his dad were inside collapsed. These accidents are very rare but still possible, and one needs to be aware of the potential dangers. Let's first talk about the structural integrity of snow shelters. The three most common reasons for snow shelter to collapse are brute outside force, the snow shelter collapsing on its own due to inferior construction, and lastly, due to increasing temperatures. The two common outside forces causing the igloo to collapse are both location related. If you build the igloo below a large tree, there is a risk that a heavy buildup of snow might slide off a branch and crash through the ceiling of the igloo. It is okay to build an igloo near trees for wind cover, as long as it's not too close to any branches. The other place where not to build an igloo is next to a steeper slope, due to a potential avalanche risk. A properly built igloo in the proper weather conditions will not collapse. You should be able to crawl to the top of the roof within hours of completion of the igloo, without damaging the igloo. And the next morning you should be able to walk on top of it, and it would take a lot of effort to break through the roof. In the beginning of this video, I thought I could just blast through the wall, creating some type of Superman effect. But the wall turned out to be much more resilient than I anticipated. It was actually difficult to break through it. Too thin walls, besides providing less insulation, also makes a weaker construction. Maybe a wall thickness of 1 inch per foot of the inner floor diameter could be a good rule of thumb. We usually build around 8-inch thick walls on our 8-foot inner diameter igloos. If the roof is too flat or wide, the walls won't absorb enough of the weight, and the roof could collapse in the center. The roof should be evenly rounded, but can also be steeper. The roof should never be thicker than the walls, due to the extra weight it would be carrying. Rather, the closer to the center, the thinner it can be. In the above 8-foot igloo example, the ceiling could taper down evenly from 8 inches to, let's say, 5 or 6 inches at the center. The lower walls can't be built straight up and then angling in. It would cause lateral pressure on the walls, causing the walls to burst out, and the whole igloo would cave in. The optimal or typical shape is the half globe with evenly thick walls and roof. Acceptable profiles also include a wider base and a thinner roof. The third reason for an igloo to collapse is the weather conditions. Inherently, an igloo is a cold weather structure. There is some flexibility with the temperature, where it can be a few degrees above the freezing during part of the day, as long as it drops below freezing by evening. but it is a bad idea to build an igloo at temperatures staying above freezing. The igloo will never be structurally as strong as it was intended to be. The other scenario is where the igloo was originally built and used at below freezing temperatures, but at a later date starts thawing. When the weather turns warmer, you need to pay more attention to the structural integrity of the igloo and keep an eye for any signs of sagging. Another issue with warmer weather is the rain. Rainwater will be soaked up by the igloo and the walls and roof are not only becoming softer, but also much heavier. A well-built igloo is airtight by default, except for the entryway. But even if the entryway is left wide open, the air inside the igloo above the entryway is trapped. With only one opening, there is no draft, and the air circulation is very minimal, potentially causing a carbon dioxide buildup. The simple solution is adding a vent hole up toward the ceiling. You can still cover the door as long as you leave a small gap. That will be enough to circulate air in through the entrance and out through the roof vent. When building the igloo, both the entrance and the vent should be placed on the side away from the prevalent wind. I usually add a snow cover on the outside over the vent hole, so any snowfall won't plug the vent. It is also common practice to have a candle or two lit in the igloo. The idea being that if the candle goes out, it is a warning sign of low oxygen levels. But we don't usually bother with the candles since we are confident that our igloos are well vented. The risk of hypothermia is not directly related to igloos. Staying adequately warm and dry is mostly affected by how you dress for circumstances and how you manage to stay warm without causing yourself to sweat or otherwise getting wet. At home, if you get wet from handling the snow while building an igloo, you can simply go inside the house to change. Likewise, if you are staying the night in the igloo and become too cold, you can just go back inside the house. But when you are snow camping in the backcountry, you don't have that same luxury. Everything you do has to be well planned, so you don't run into trouble. Either you have to build an igloo in a way that doesn't get you wet, or you have to have extra change of clothes for just that purpose. You also have to have sleeping gear suited for cold weather, such as properly rated sleeping bag and insulating pads. The igloo should be constructed in a way that helps you stay warm in the igloo, and with warm I mean temperatures around freezing. The igloo itself is a really good insulator, especially compared to tents. You can further improve the inside temperature with a few tricks. The earlier mentioned vent hole should not be placed at the highest point of the ceiling, but down a bit, so the ceiling can trap some of the warmer air. Warmer air raises up and colder air sinks down. If the vent is in the center, all the warm air would escape. Likewise, leave a trench on the floor below your sleeping level. The colder air will be down in the trench instead of right where you sleep. Also, the entrance should ideally be below the snow surface level, reducing heat escape. Also, the earlier mentioned candles could also help keeping the temperatures up a few degrees. A small stove, such as the one in this video, could be used but only at extremely cold temperatures, helping to keep the inside temperature at the desired level. Also, when using any combustible heat source, it is extremely important that the heat source, such as this stove, is set up properly and is safe to use. Although I made this stove for this purpose, I have never used it at any overnight camping trip, and I am not sure if I would be comfortable using it. I think I covered most of the basics, but there might be other important aspects. Always do your research and use common sense. It is also a good idea to do it together with someone when building and staying in snow shelters, in the unlikely event that something happens. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video.